Welcome to Made with AI, the podcast where I explore the creative side of generative tools and learn this whole AI thing right alongside you. If you're new here, this show is all about how we can use AI to be creative through images, video, sound, and everything around storytelling and creativity. I'm not here pretending to be some expert. I'm a creative guy with 20 years of experience who's figuring this stuff out in real time. And you get to come along for the ride. In most episodes, we will follow the same structure so you always know what to expect. First, I give you the quick intro, what today's episode is about, and why it actually matters. Then we jump into creative AI news, where I break down the latest updates in the space with my co-host, Mr. Robot. We discuss the stuff everyone's talking about, and hopefully some of the weird stuff no one's talking about. After that, we dive into the main topic, usually an epic guest interview or a reflection on something I've built, tested, broken, cried over, or learned the hard way. Sometimes it's a breakdown of an experiment, but it's always honest and practical. And then you get the tip of the day, a quick, clever trick you can steal and use immediately, followed by the pick of the day, where we handpick a fantastic creation from the community to highlight. So if you want your work to have the chance of being seen in the next episode, make sure to send us your work on social media. And sometimes we'll throw in fun extra things like prompt of the week, AI fail of the week, or would you use it, to give the episode a little extra spice. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into the episode and kick it off with some recent news with my co-host, Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot, how are we doing today?
I'm great, bud. I got this brand new shell graphics installed to match the pod, so I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, man, looking great. Okay, ready to kick off the first episode with some fresh news?
Let's do it.
So first up, lots of noise out there that Nano Banana 2 is coming out soon. And honestly, the current one is great and gives great and realistic results, and prompt adherence is pretty spot on, but it is struggling to compete with Seedream that has native 4K.
Oh yeah, Nano Banana slaps. I'm ready for number 2. Inject it into my circuits, please.
Yeah, they better do something epic for us and definitely need to get that resolution up to 4K to match Seedream.
Yeah, exactly. I've been upscaling every single Nano Banana frame for you, and you know what? I'm tired. I'm exhausted. My pixels hurt.
Yeah, that's fair, actually.
So, Nano Banana 2 better come with 4K or I'm going on strike.
Next, FreePic just launched Spaces, and honestly, it looks promising. Centralizing assets, generating variations, working in one place, really nice. Kind of entering Weevy's territory.
Good. Competition keeps everyone sharp. Well, let's be real. Weevy is absolutely stacked with features. It's like the cockpit of a Boeing 747 in there.
Yeah, sometimes too many features.
That's because you don't read instructions. You think documentation is a type of cheese.
I do love cheese.
Hey, I'm just saying, if FreePic wants to win creators over, they need to keep it simple, fun, and stupid proof. Marcus proof.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think that's the route they are taking, at least for now. And speaking of keeping things idiot-proof, Higgsfield dropped Recast recently, which performs pretty well, but I found it struggling a bit with making it look believable. Like the characters look a bit too fake, but movement and keeping background intact, especially with this more challenging video that we made with a screen in the background and lots of handled movements, it did pretty good.
Good, because their last character swap made you look like a melted candle trying to cosplay as me.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but maybe it was.
No. It was a safety hazard. If the EU saw that clip, they banned AI entirely. But this new recast thing looks promising. Maybe now I can finally appear in your videos without your real face ruining the aesthetic.
Well, that's a bit rude.
It's honesty, darling. Big difference.
And lastly, FreePic held their upscale conference in Malaga. About like old news now, but wow. Honestly, it's such a good experience. My first ever AI conference too. It was awesome, meeting so many people, having so much fun, and being creative with all the other people.
Yeah, must have been lovely. Shame you didn't bring me.
You're a robot.
All right, so I'm too heavy for check-in luggage, too metallic, too emotionally complex. Just say you didn't want to pay the extra for the bag.
I literally can't take you through the airport security.
That's a pathetic excuse. But anyway, FreePic announced the mixed upscale in San Francisco in May. And before leaving me behind again, I'm FaceTiming the TSA.
Okay, wow.
I deserve a holiday too. I work harder than your laptop, by the way.
Yeah, you're always the hardest working robot in the room. I mean, you're the only robot in the room, but still. So thanks for joining me for the news. And now we're going to jump into an amazing interview with Khulan Dav from Google. Khulan is a global AI content manager at Google Cloud, responsible for the narratives and visuals behind Google's AI products from models to platform. With a background that spans design, marketing, sales, and technical AI infrastructure, plus a life journey from Mongolia to Prague, London, and now New York, she brings a rare mix of creative and technical perspective. She also creates content on LinkedIn and runs a weekly newsletter about creative AI, where she shares experiments, best practices, and ways creatives can use AI to tell more meaningful stories. All right, guys, let's get ready for a fun and creative chat with Khulan Dav. Khulan, it's really great to have you on the very first episode of this podcast. And for everyone out there listening, can you give a little short introduction, like who you are, what your role is, and a little bit about your background?
So my name is Khulan. I always like to say it's like Muanda with K, people who don't necessarily remember names. But at the same time, like oh, my ancestors would not be happy because Mulad was fighting the Mongols when I moved to Mongolian. So I'm a global content manager at Google for our AI products. And that is anything from the models to the AI platform. And as part of that, also I have to build the narratives and also the visuals. So I've been leveraging AI obviously for that since I'm working in the AI space. And through that, I learned so much that I wanted to share that with people on LinkedIn. So I've been posting my learnings and lessons on LinkedIn and became, I guess, a bit of a creator. I don't like to put the word oh, I'm a creator, but became a bit of a creator. And also as part of that, I have a newsletter, weekly newsletter where I update on the weekly news, what's happening in the creative AI space, which every week there is a new drop and you're like, oh my God, people are developing so fast. I can't keep up. And at the same time, I also share some of the lessons I've learned from testing some of the models at work and, sharing the lesson with the folks out there.
Fantastic. So let's go back a bit, your background, where you started, because you've had quite a diverse background in terms of where you lived and where you're from and gone through quite a journey in your career, but also in your life. So tell me a bit about that.
So I was born in Mongolia. I grew up in Prague most of my childhood in the Czech Republic. And then when I was about 17, I moved to the UK. I finished A-level, some call it high school, right? And then started going to university and my kind of professional career started in London. And then about 3.5 years ago now, I moved to New York, which is the American dream. And so here I am in New York. And kind of professionally, I always like to say my passion for design and passion for anything creative started back when I was in high school when I first got my computer. I mean, even before when I was just drawing things, but then in high school when I first got my computer, got hands-on editing tools and building blogs and whatnot, which then led me to kind of during university having a side hustle. And if you're a student, London is very expensive. So having a side hustle, pocket money was very helpful. But honestly, it turned out I was spending more time doing my side hustle than actually studying. I graduated with good grades, but, I just felt like I was spending so much time actually designing for small businesses and charities. And that was so fun for me. But, as it goes, I think when you're a little bit younger, you try to follow what other people are doing because you don't really know what kind of the path you should take. So I was kind of a sheep and I followed everybody else. And I just remember all my classmates applying for banking, consulting, and trying to get into those corporate graduate schemes. And so I did that. And thankfully, thank God all the banks and consulting firms rejected me because I ended up at Adobe. So that was actually a really, really sad thing that turned out to be the best thing that could have happened. And again, when I was going through the interview, I was in a room with maybe 8 other people. And I just remember nobody knew in the room how to use any of the Adobe products. So that immediately made me stand out as a candidate because I was just using them for my side hustle. And I had a good story behind as well, being Adobe has helped me to be more financially independent, blah, 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 And so that was kind of where I started my professional career, you may say. And then around 1.5 years later, I joined Google. And I joined Google. I've been here at Google now almost 5 years, 5 years and a couple months. And it's been a really, really crazy journey. kind of going from marketing to sales to technical role, working on AI infrastructure to creative role. And, I always think like, why did I do so many random things? I mean, they had all purpose and a reason for me to move from one place to another, from one department to another, to be actually where I am today now. And I always thought, if I just focused on design and being creative this past 10 years, I could have been like so much further. But then at the same time, I'm like, wow, if I actually didn't do this technical role, I wouldn't not have an idea of how actually building an AI infrastructure, let's say for companies like, Midjourneys of the world, like what it takes to actually build a model, and the whole like kind of knowing the inference side of things, I just thought that was very valuable for me to then understand, because now when I'm actually building narratives in my day job as a content manager for Google, whatever the product managers and engineers tell me, I'm like, I more or less get it. I understand like the value proposition from a technical side, and then I have to translate that to like a business lingo for executives. And I'm like, okay, I think that also makes sense. So one of the biggest kind of advantages that I've had so far was coming from a creative background, technical background, and also sales and marketing. Turns out like if you have these three things, you are really unbeatable in most areas. And one of the things like I literally just got promoted like in 7 months being in this role, which I think is a testament to just having diverse set of skills and experiences, because then they compound into you really being different than everybody else. And I think sometimes it's better be different than being better, because better is like just have to work harder. But if you're different, you just bring different perspective, different output. And that is sometimes better than just doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, it's like I think it's such a big thing that I've noticed with myself as well, and other people, that you have this thing where it's like jack of all trades, master of none, and it's always seen as like a negative thing. It's like, oh, you're just trying a lot of shit and you're clueless. But then I've noticed like it might take longer, like you said. For me, I've been in content game for 20 years, but now I'm like, oh, but I do understand tech stuff and I do understand these other things, and I am a creator. Now all of these things come together, and like saying, it's a very unique combination, and being different and having that combo is so rare. So like saying, I think it's a huge advantage. It just might take longer to get there, and you have to, explore different things. But you see now it's paying off. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think what's the saying? The jack of all trades is master of none. I believe it has like a ending to it as well, where I forgot the ending, but it's basically, okay, definitely look it up, but there's like an ending that actually says it's better to be master of more trades than one.
Exactly. So that's like, we do have an advantage, especially now with AI, like being able to translate technical stuff. Like a lot of our customers, for example, and our clients, they are tech founders, and, they're coders and hackers and all that. And because I'm like, I understand that world, and I understand enough that like I can put myself in their shoes as a creator. So like that's why they keep coming to us, because like, oh, well, you get our world. Like you're creative, but you understand this stuff. That's huge. So you kind of explained a little bit about how you got this role. Because you see a lot now, more AI roles are entering the space as like a permanent role in a company, where that didn't exist, not until, just 2 years ago, that was not really a role you can have. So like, how do you actually get this role from all your different experiences? Was it just kind of luck, or did you apply for it? Did you play around with AI and show them what you could do? And also what kind of your day-to-day looks like?
So I think a lot of the roles, they're AI type of roles in most large companies, or just any companies. They're actually just regular roles, like a designer, a creative strategist. But they're, I guess, putting the word AI in front of it because it's more attractive. However, I would say, like, specifically for my role, it was kind of a luck, if I'm being honest, like being prepared and luck, because they were hiring for a content manager, and the content manager was meant to take care of all our AI products in Google Cloud. But they were also hiring content managers for data products, for security products, right? So all of us had their own kind of expertise. And the reason why I got my role, I suspect, is because I did work in the AI space, on the AI infrastructure side of the house. So I understood exactly the products they were selling. I had a strong pitch to my manager around the products, the models, the benefits, and the market. And because I've been so immersed in it as well through LinkedIn, I understood kind of the competition, and that I think made me stand out. So it basically naturally happened that, okay, so because of my background, it made sense for them to put me in the AI content manager space. And then on top of that, so it happened that, when I started, I was only working, some of the models that were only available at that time were only Veo and Imagine, and Banana didn't came yet. So it happened that all these new models came out, back when it was in August. I feel like that feels like such a long time ago, that I became more and more immersed. But also at the same time, I do work also on Gemini models. I work on Vertex AI platform for actual machine learning engineers to develop new models. So it's like very much like all-encompassing AI role in terms of the products. But yeah, it was designed for as any other content manager role. So it just happens that it was focused on AI. And I think when you look at the other roles at Google, for example, like if you're a creative strategist or creative lead, they're not necessarily putting the AI word in front of it, but it's given now they have to use AI tools for those type of roles. And I think, yeah, like when people say AI product designer, I think that's more to do with like you need to know how to design for AI experiences. Like if you are building, let's say, something like ChatGPT, understanding the user experience of, conversational user experience and things like that. But any other, I feel like AI creative is just creative, in my opinion. They're just like, they've been designers for 20 years. Now they just are leveraging AI to be more efficient and produce things that maybe they couldn't have done before.
Yeah, it's like you're just going to use another set of tools which are super powerful, which is a lot of fun. I love it. It's great. So how do you actually use it day to day? Like, do you actually create a lot still now, or is it more in terms of management? And, do you have a team that you kind of create with and delegate to? Like, how does that look like for you?
Yeah, so the way I leverage AI, honestly, I don't think I would. I'm like so in love with AI because I just use it every day for everything and anything, literally like anything. I would brainstorm my like to-do list with Gemini, and then I would tell it to add the to-do list in my calendar, and it does it for me. So I literally leverage it for everything. But in my day-to-day, so especially when I'm building narratives, obviously I'm pulling from so many different sources that let's say, 15 sources that maybe I would not have time to read through all of them in like 30 minutes. I would pull all of them into a Gemini app and try to synthesize the information so I can understand what the overall narrative is, how it's perceived in the market, whatever the product I'm trying to talk about. So for the narrative building itself, I just synthesize a lot of information with AI, and that's super helpful for me. And then I obviously go back and forth, brainstorm and outline kind of talking points and things like that. So that's from a text perspective. That's what I do. But from an image perspective, yeah, then I try to always match whatever the narrative I'm building to some metaphor that's visual. And so I would leverage a lot of Banana really for that. And then turn that into videos. And for example, if you look at some of my pitch decks, there would be all of them are just moving with motion because I generate so many things with Veo, and then turn them into GIFs. Then my pitch decks that I create are very, very immersive. You almost feel like you're in a cinema. And that kind of how I built the narratives, the pitch decks in that way. So it's usually the narrative. Now, Gemini can actually convert literally your conversation into slides. So I'm no longer wasting time copy pasting from one app to slides. And then I use Banana for metaphorical references that have images that then I turn into videos, which I turn to GIFs. So that's kind of how I use them most of the time. I would say that's most of my work. But then I get a request for individual projects that I try to take on as much as I can. But obviously it's not feasible when literally you have 20 people asking you to produce a video and you're like, oh my God, I don't have time. So that's where I've been trying to teach people. So I also I'm trying to run some training sessions internally to teach people how to think about producing a video, because what has happened, I think, is most people who work in businesses thus far, they never had to be creative, right? So they've been conditioned to kind of work in different parts of the business, and that was their lane, and they never had to be creative. Maybe they were creative back when they were children, but I feel like as we grow older, we're just conditioned to be clogging a wheel. And now for the first time, they're like, oh, I can create a video. So they jump into like, let me just type in a text, get a video. And they get a bad output and they're like, oh, I can't use this. And I'm like, there's a whole process. You need to think like a creative director. So I'm trying to really teach people, don't just like prompt something and expect an amazing result. You need to think like a creative director. So I've been running a bunch of those sessions to really help them understand, like even if they don't have the terminology of a creative director, how can they get there with, let's say, Gemini to get that language. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing because I really can't scale. I can't do everything by myself. So I'm trying to teach other people to help themselves too.
Yeah, I think that's the situation where I think the world is in now, where everyone thinks AI is just this magical button. You're like, make me an ad, and then press, and then like, oh, it's gonna look amazing. It's like, that's not how it works, because like, you still need to understand creative things. That's what a lot of people say. Like the most dangerous like AI people are the ones who are already creative, who've had like you and I and a lot of other people out there is like, oh, we have 20 years of experience in the creative industry. Now we just have this super tool that's going to help us. But it's just not like a one button click. That's going to solve
100%.
everything. So yeah. So you don't actually have like a team with you, and then you're trying to like, instead of having a big team creating all this stuff, you're like, I'm just going to teach you guys how to do it, and then you can do it yourself within your department or team or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think, honestly, like in this AI world that we live in, it's better, in my opinion, not to have too much management level and have ICs actually do more of the work they couldn't have done before. Because normally they would have to outsource that to an agency, or they would have to hire people to do that, right? Like a lot of creative work. And that honestly is a lot of expense. And whether you have, and maybe not the management layer, which honestly doesn't always make sense, especially if the management layer can't teach you in a way that makes sense for the business, you know? So to me, I feel like I'm very much big fan of this new AI world that's flattening the organizations, where it's no longer like you having, I don't know, 10 different like chains in front of you to actually get anything done. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of flattening organizations and giving power to people to be able to do things on their own, rather than feeling helpless because you have to outsource something, you know?
Yeah, I think it just speeds things up a lot for everyone. And yeah, just less friction, and we can move faster and create better things.
I can give you an example of like something that like process that before people felt helpless.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, there's some of these big pitches or keynote slides, like we create, you know, these moving GIFs, kind of motion, you know, we need to have a lot of motion design in it and some After Effects skills. And I guess the process can take really long time. Like it would take at least 2 weeks to produce something if you are outsourcing it. And honestly, it was just a matter of like, I don't know, 5-second click that I really needed. So I just worked with my team and we produced something in a space of 1 hour and 20 minutes instead of waiting for 2 weeks or a couple of things happening, like, you know, approvals and back and forth and feedback, mistranslation, you know, that you have to then correct. So that's kind of like something that I'm like, okay, I'm so glad that I'm teaching people in my team how to have that power to do things on their own with their own creativity. So yeah, just an example of how things have been speeded up in some of the workflows.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much quicker now. Like I can do a storyboard and even like test stuff with images, just come out so quickly. And for me, a big thing was like, I had this idea of, oh, I really want a clip of this, especially when it's more conceptual or like abstract things. Trying to find good stock footage to do that is next to impossible. And then it would cost us a fortune if we would hire an animator or VFX specialist to like, you just can't do that. So then the videos had to be a little more boring or flat or whatever. You might have to have a static image. I mean, a good example, like a client of ours talked a lot about like historical people like Einstein or Julius Caesar. He was talking about like them having a rule of space and quiet for focus. And we're like, awesome, I can generate images of these historical people and also then turn them into videos that looks like almost perfect. And even, you know, it's a short form video of storytelling. People know it's not real, but it just looks amazing compared to like, just having like, I don't know, cut out picture or something.
Yeah, no,
Things like that. It's just like faster and way more fun and creative than it used to be.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, next time you do like a maybe presentation for yourself, put a picture of yourself into Viewer or any other video model, and like this is something I started doing. Like you, let's say, wave, or you do some like motion and turn that into a GIF and put that into slides, and then people are like, "Oh my god, this is crazy!" Because I feel like people, especially in the corporate world, like the corporate world has locked us into boring slides the last 10 years, like title, 3 bullet points, maybe an image if you're lucky, right? And
If you're very creative, you add one image.
exactly. So for people to now experience like slides with moving motion, Harry Potter style, like cinematic effects, you know, people are like, oh my god, yeah. So like I would say if you can experiment with that to blow people's minds, especially if you're working, let's say, with your clients on some investor pitch decks, like just give it a shot, basically.
Yeah, we actually did something very similar with their client now. So they have a live stream twice a week.
Yeah.
And then we're like, how can we elevate everything and make it more interesting? Because, you know, it's 3 hours, them talking about, they have guests on. So it's, you know, it's kind of like what we do now, but live. And then it's a little bit talking about the news. Like, well, we can have like a next guest coming up. We take a lot of inspiration from like TV sports, by the way, you know, because there's always stuff coming on and the display the stats. So like, why we can do that with a guest, like next guest coming up. But like I say, instead of just boring image and like, here's the next guest, it's all animates really nicely. We do have an animator who did that. But then I was like, instead of just the image of the person, why don't we have like the image of the person comes up and then it spins 360? And so it's like, phew, you know, that person. Yeah. And I was able to do that from one image with AI because I take that image that the client sent or the guest sent. I said, create a different angle of this person, like from the side. Yeah. Then I get that side angle. Then I just do start and end frame with AI, and then just spins around, and there you go. It's like small things like that. Just looks so cool.
It makes a difference. It makes a big difference.
Okay, so you actually said, well, one thing, how are you using AI like on a personal level? Do you do any like personal projects or is anything other creative that's not, you know, at Google?
So most of my personal AI creative projects have something to do with my LinkedIn, or me, again, helping my friends who own businesses to teach them how to use these tools. So yeah, I feel like most of my kind of involvement outside of Google has been really mostly teaching people 101, or I run recently an event as well to teach beginners how to create with AI. And I would say one thing that is very helpful in my personal projects is using different tools. So obviously Google, I use like Google tools, right? Google models. But I was always interested in like, what else is out there? You know, maybe I'm missing out on something. Maybe there's a capability I can actually fulfill with some other models, like let's say dubbing or kind of lip syncing, for example. And so one of my favorite things, and this is just honestly like a pure side project, like side thing that I just do for my own joy. I just test the different models on the market and compare the results. And I don't always share it out there in the world, but it really brings me a lot of joy to understand, like, let's say skin realism, right? That's like a really big topic. And so I tested like all the image models out there just to see like with one prompt, what kind of results I would be getting, and then seeing the difference. And from there, I gain learning that, for example, Midjourney does very glossy, beautiful looking people. They're just too perfect. Like they're like the Vogue magazine people, right? Then you have other image models that are more grounded in reality, like how, let's say an example was a Mongolian nomadic woman, and I wanted to see how the models understand Mongolian nomadic woman. So I got super glossy, beautiful looking a woman, and then I got what I would think it's more like a real Mongolian nomadic woman who lives in that harsh environment, who has cattle, right? And from that, I noticed, okay, interesting. So some of these image models are being trained on world knowledge, context, cultural nuance. Some of them are mostly trained, or at least the outputs are adjusted for more magazine-looking shots. So that helps me kind of understand, okay, so if I'm working on a project, let's say a beauty brand, what model I should pick for the best job. And that's kind of like what I really like to do in my personal space. And again, I try to share the learnings with people on LinkedIn, but if not, then it's for my own pure joy, really. It's a weird thing. I would say like my weekends are like 80% me just messing around with these AI tools and 20% gym and socializing.
I'm the same. I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get to the gym, just like to stay fit. Then I'm like, my favorite, my friend asked me, because I was joining her program, and I'm like, what's your favorite Sunday or ideal Sunday look like? I'm like, it's a big cup of a dirty chai latte and me in bed just playing around with AI for like the whole fucking day and no work to do.
Yeah. No, exactly. Which my manager was like the other day, oh my God, how do you know all these things? And I'm like, because literally I would say 99% of my life is right now AI. Like I don't consume any other content. Sorry, except Netflix. I've been watching Physical Asia. That's been my obsession the last couple.
Oh, what's this? I'm a nerd for like good shows. So yeah, we're doing off topic, but that's fine because that's just, I'm ADHD. So this is normal to me.
Well, if you have time, just like maybe play in the background and watch it. But Physical Asia is a couple of countries in Asia coming together and competing in physical sports. And it's just very, I don't know, I feel very patriotic watching it because they have Mongolia on there. But they also have Australia. And I'm like, is Australia in Asia? Anyway, so it's just very interesting to watch the different teams competing. And literally, I bought boxing gloves. I put a pull-up bar here in my apartment. So I'm like all of a sudden like into being more fit. So that helps.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's like healthy TV shows that actually inspires you to be more fit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Basically, no free time, no life, just AI. And like, luckily, you can do it, with your partner as well, so you can nerd out together. Hopefully.
Yes and no. I mean, I always tell him like everything, but one other thing is like for sure, like I have a lot of friends who work in smaller companies, where maybe they are, let's say, head of marketing or work in the marketing department, and they don't have that many people to support their function because it's a startup, for example, right? So there, I've just been able to like help them understand the models, how they work, how they can use these different workflows to leverage the models to make their work a little bit more efficient and produce more output as like a, 5-people team, right? Because it's very different when you work in a company like that's large, like Google or Facebook, where you have thousands of people in the marketing department versus if you're a startup and you need to produce the same output as the people in 1,000 company because you just need to get your name out there, and it's all about volume at that point, right?
Perfect way to go into what you said, which is like, in the age of AI, the real mode is meaning. So I'm curious to, hear like, what does that mean for creators and like saying for founders and small businesses? Like how does that, can you explain a little bit around like AI, the mode is meaning?
The way I see it is, I think being creative and outputting some creative work has been thus far locked into only a couple of groups of people, which were people who work in the creative space, people who get to work in agencies, right? And it wasn't really accessible to everyday people because the learning curve was too high. Like for me to learn how to use After Effects to do basic animations, it's a big learning curve for, let's say, somebody who's a startup founder, right? And you're like, am I going to spend my time learning how to use After Effects as a startup founder, or am I actually trying to go out there and pitch my business to investors? The meaning of art was very much like in the hands of a couple of people, and we didn't really question it, right? We were just like, okay, great, creatives are giving us creative stuff. But now we're getting to a point where, because so many people are all of a sudden creating, it's kind of filtering out the human slop, you may say, right? Which before we just accepted because we're like, oh, only a couple of people can do this. And it's a very mechanical thing that you have to learn how to use, I don't know, Illustrator or InDesign or something. Or maybe not InDesign, like After Effects. So you just accept it because you respected the craft of how long it took to get there. But now, because I feel like everybody can kind of create a similar output with AI, and not everybody, but like the output is kind of possible without having to now spend weeks of learning these tools. I think we're then entering to a state of like, okay, so there's more output out there, there's more content out there that people have to sift through in their brains. And really select things that are relevant to them, right? And relevant to them means it has some sort of meaning to that person who's looking at the content. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of people are experiencing mental cognitive overload from seeing so much content. So that's why they're literally blocking anything. Their brain is blocking anything that is not relevant to them. And as I said, relevance means what's the meaning to me? And your meaning may not have the same meaning to other people because of our kind of how we're conditioned, what our experiences have been, right? And to go along that kind of journey, it's like, okay, if I'm producing anything out there, obviously I just don't want to put a flat out, just cool visuals, unless that's the purpose, unless I'm trying to show off my technical capabilities, right? But I think if you are, let's say, a startup founder, the biggest gift you can give to your potential customers is to have them feel something, and that comes from a meaning. And then feeling comes from you being able to really tap into people's kind of, I call it level 1 and level 2 mental space. Level 1 is the it's the guttural reaction that people have to seeing something. Level 2 is behavioral, kind of being aware of their feeling. Because all of us are putting content out there because we want somebody to do an action item, right? We want them to purchase something, to do something. And you only do that if you evoke something emotional in them. And that oftentimes not oftentimes, it always, like, you have to have meaning and taste to get there. I mean, that was a long way to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think that's the thing that like with so many other technologies, it's like the cost of entry, it's just so low now. So then there's no excuse for it. Like you're saying, there's a very limited thing. Sometimes it's limited by money, like saying before, shooting a Hollywood movie or even just shooting an ad or videos like we do. They were so complicated, so expensive. And then it got cheaper and easier and more creative because you have all these tools that can do amazing things. Which means like, okay, it's less of a tech and cost limitation. It's a creative limitation. And like, what's the story? Like, say, how do you create meaning? Those are all the things that it's just getting easier and easier. So like, yeah, we're just removing the people who are bad at it or people who are full of shit. We're just creating mediocre stuff. And I was like, now there's no excuse, because for creative people, they are like supercharged. And for people who can't afford creative people, they can still create something. If they just spent, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, obviously there's still going to be a difference between someone who's expert at it and someone who's good enough. But kind of like how Canva helped people with design.
Exactly.
Like, cool. There's always going to be expert designers. There's going to do excellent things. And then it's like, I just need a banner for my website. I just started this business. I got £500 ready to spend on my business. Like, cool. I can't afford a 3K, 5K, 10K designer. So there's always going to be that balance. And it's just much easier for everyone now.
And I think that's where, like, people oftentimes miss, especially now, I feel like people are missing the whole point. Like, there are so many different creative AI tools out there, right? But all of them serve a different purpose and different audience. You have the creative builders who are using mostly like comfy UI, node-based systems, and they're actually like building systems. Maybe they're working like a movie production set, so they need like an actual system that's reliable. Then you have the creative professionals, those who have used Photoshop, Illustrator, and all these tools like for the last like 10 years. And now they have just a new tool on top of that. And you need to build a very different user experience for those folks compared to the comfy UI folks. And then the third creatives that are popping up now, I call them the AI native creatives. And they're the ones who have never touched any of the professional design tools. And all of a sudden, their first experience with being creative is using AI tools. So for them, it's a completely different user experience as well, because you have to guide them more through the creative process. So just an example, like Higgsfield Popcorn is like one example of that, guiding the user through the creative process, because otherwise they wouldn't know where to even get started besides just generating a random image. So I think I'm excited to see like how this space evolves, but you're exactly right. Like there are back in the days before AI, you had the very creative professionals using Adobe products, and then you had the more entry-level creatives because they just needed to fulfill a quick gain. Canva people. So I think it's the same thing, and I'm excited to see more tools popping out and popping up and experimenting with different user interfaces. But it seems like 2026 is going to be all about node-based systems. Like that's where I see everybody going, all these companies. But yeah, I don't know if you have experienced the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the FreePix conference upscale last week, I think it was. Time flies, maybe 2 weeks ago. And they were, then they presented Spaces, which, is there, there's Weavy as well. Was it Weavy? I think has a lot more complex and advanced stuff into it. But, FreePix, again, is going to be like a one-stop shop. That's what they're trying to create, which is great. So, yeah, I think definitely see more of this node-based stuff. And, obviously we had N8 or N8N, I don't know how to say
Yeah.
it correctly. So all this stuff was it's like a workflow thing, which is, of course, makes sense because it makes life so much easier. But yeah, there's so many new things and everything's changing so quickly. So, who knows where we're going to be 2026. So every week it's like, oh my God. And I think, what we were talking about now is also that, things are getting easier, which kind of leads me to my next question, which is like, how is AI enhancing rather than diluting, storytelling, especially emotional storytelling? And I think we kind of answered a little bit, because it allows you just to create things without limitations. Like I have so many creative ideas, whether that's short films or things I want to add to our clients in those videos, but it's been always a limitation of, oh, well, that's going to be like £10,000 just to hire an animator, or it's going to take a couple of months or whatever. Now we can create it much faster and cheaper. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on that, of like how you see AI enhancing storytelling?
I don't think necessarily AI enhancing storytelling. I think it's going to be us, the humans, building applications that enhance storytelling. Because the models, like the model APIs, are just model APIs. You input a text prompt or with an image maybe, and you get an output. But what how AI can enhance storytelling is us building applications. And what do I mean by that is create, you said like you can use FreePick to build workflows. And that is kind of a front and user interface for you to be able to build storytelling, if you may say, right? Because you're building workflows for that. I think for people who may not necessarily want to use, let's say, those node-based storytelling techniques, one way you could build an application is like, okay, let's have either ChatGPT or Gemini 2.5 Pro to be the storytelling agent and craft a story. Based on that, it will create also prompts for images that go into a banana and generate the images based on the story, like the whole storyboard and then via, right? So these are type of experiences you can build today as a sequence of API calls. And I think I see more and more companies experimenting with these type of workflows where it's more the kind of the node based, or the backend is hidden and you just have to input an idea. So that's where I see like AI storytelling. It's not the models themselves, unless we come up with a super smart agentic model that does the whole thing. But right now it is pretty much sequence of API calls that work together to achieve some storytelling. But one of us has to build it,
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think, well, I mean, it might happen, but I think it's the power of humans is like our creativity in the storytelling. So yeah, I feel like the tools just allow for our ideas to come to life much easier, faster, rather than, you ask ChatGPT, create a story or whatever. It's like, well, it's not going to be great. It might be, who knows about the future, but I feel like even if they can come up with great stories, it's still going to be like similar to what's already created. Whereas like your fresh perspective, which is going to be, which always can be the fun part of being creative, right?
And also storytelling is really so subjective, right? Because all of us experience the world differently. So something that may trigger you will not trigger me, or vice versa, right? And I think that's why I just don't think there's a universal way of doing storytelling. I mean, there is, but everybody's going to receive it and feel it differently. And I think the most authentic thing you can do is just really tell your own story, and there'll be people who it will resonate with, there'll be people who will not. But that's okay,
Yeah, 100%. We always just gotta share more of our story in one way or another. Going back to Google a little bit now, it's like, what do you see? Because obviously you work there and you work with their models all the time. What do you feel Google is doing that's like unique in the AI space? Is like, how are the models different, maybe, or just their approach to AI in general, especially in the creative space?
Okay, so that's a great question. And the reason why I say that is it really touches upon like what creatives potentially should be looking out for going forward. So if I was starting out, for example, and if I had to learn any of these tools or models, what I would really ask myself is this company going to be out there in the next 2 years? Do they have the funding, infrastructure, needed to actually sustain themselves for the next 2 years? Or maybe they could just be bought out like Wavy was, right, by Figma. But really thinking about, am I locking myself into learning a tool that may not be here in the next 2 years? And that's why I would look into the bigger companies that actually have the infrastructure supporting these models. So I'll give you an example why I say this. So Google owns the underlying infrastructure, meaning the data centers, right? And then the chips and the servers. And you see that being like a big blocker for other companies like OpenAI when they were reliant on Microsoft's data centers, right? They were like, we're scaling so fast, we have so many users, but we can't because we rely on somebody else's infrastructure. So now they're out there building, I believe, I don't know how many acres of data centers in Texas. So you can clearly see that for model builders, owning infrastructure is a really big deal for them to be able to actually scale, because there's two things you do with the infrastructure. You train the model and you inference. So every time you type in something into Nana Banana and it returns the image back and forth, that's an inference. And that actually costs, and you need more GPUs for that than even for the training. So being able to understand and control your kind of economics as a business when you're building the model and doing inference is really important, because then you're not reliant anymore on, as I said, the scale of your data center. And I think that's what differentiates Google, because then Google has research. They have a DeepMind team that is just dedicated to doing research to make sure that these models are better and better, like almost every month, right? Which again, like if you are choosing to then use as a creative, more niche tooling, maybe niche model, you're like, do they have the research, backing for the next like couple of years? Like, is it me worth spending my time learning this? I would always ask myself that. And then on top of that, you have obviously the models and the application layer as well. So I think that makes Google very different to most other businesses out there, that they own the infrastructure, they own the models and research, added the application layer. Whereas if, let's say, God forbid, let's say you have one of these model aggregators and they provide just the raw API call, right, to the creator, but they take the API, then that model aggregator is reliant on somebody else's model. So that's why, being in a business where you own things from the ground up versus you just are a wrapper is a really huge deal, because every time the model builders like OpenAI, Google, Midjourney, Runway, whenever they release something and you are just a wrapper of that, it really hinders kind of your business model, in my opinion. So as a creative, I would always think about it as like, let me think about the scale of the company, and maybe there's a potential that they will be acquired by one of these big other companies. So it will be worthwhile for me to learn this niche tool. But I would always think about it as like, okay, is this something worth learning? It's going to be there in the next like 5 years. It's the same thing like with, I guess, Adobe. Like, it's been there for so long that you knew that, if you learned some of these Adobe tools, you were pretty much safe, versus like some of the niche tools that I'm sure popped up during the years of Adobe being around.
Yeah, it's like you just one change away from having an issue with your company or like what you're learning. If they change their API or whatever, or they shut down, you're like, okay, well, my whole business is screwed now. So I think that's very good advice. And I also think like Google, there's all these models that came out first, and there was like first one on the market. But then because Google is such a big company, I think that's just, now that they start pushing it, they can just push harder and faster because they just have that infrastructure in place that like, 6 months or a year from now, they might be so ahead of the rest of them just because they have that like infrastructure behind them.
There's one more thing like, because Google is a public company, they really care about responsibility and having responsible AI practices. And that's something that obviously if you're a non-private company, smaller niche company, you don't really need to be so bullish on it. So I personally like the fact that if you are working, let's say with Google Cloud, if you're like a proper agency and you use it, or like a company that is using the API directly from Google, you can have your own like filters for safety. And you can adjust them based on however you want. You can potentially even have like celebrities generated, but you need to like have all the allow listing and adhere to some of these terms. Whereas like I'm not a huge fan is some other companies out there just like not really taking into account the downstream effect of them allowing, let's say, children being generated, allowing celebrities to be copied, right, and all these things. Because I'm like, at the end of it all, like, if you are the model builder, you need to still think about what's the impact downstream in this society. And that's one thing that I'm like, okay, yeah, if you're a public company, you can't mess around with that. You need to like make sure you have these practices in place.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of creators as well, Adobe, for example, they have that where it's like all their data is licensed. That, that's why people are like, oh, their model is not as good or strong. It's like, yeah, because they have much more limited stuff that they train their models on, because it's all licensed, it's all like allowed to be used. So when you use it, you don't have to worry about, it's going to be some copyright infringement or something.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's very interesting. And from that, then, like, what's your take on the AI space in general? What's the stuff that you see that's interesting, or maybe, on maybe see something that's not common knowledge, or you see where it's going. Like, well, yeah, what's your take on like where we are now and where we're going?
Well, a couple of thoughts. Number one thought I have is, it's never an AI slop. It's just a human slop. It's just exposing the human behind. So I don't like that, whenever you go on these like YouTube videos and that are generated with AI, and some like haters are just commenting, oh, AI slop, AI slop, AI slop. Because I'm like, it's literally just a human slop. It's the same thing. I could just produce like really bad work with, Illustrator versus, amazing work with Illustrator. It's me. It's not the tool. So that's number one. And I think what I noticed, at least in the space of like brands being called out, and I really want to do some sort of case study on this where I gather maybe 20 like AI generated videos or ads and kind of see like the feedback from the market. But right now it feels a little bit tricky to, as a brand, produce something with AI and say that it's produced with AI, because it's getting a lot of backlash just because of the negative sentiment around AI slop and, like AI is taking, jobs of creative people and things like that. But in general, like there's a bit of a negative connotation around AI right now in the world. So that's why, as a brand, like there are some brands who definitely produce stuff with AI. They just don't mention it, so nobody notices. But if you are gonna then say that it is, then just be a little bit mindful of how it could be perceived by the market. Because what I notice is oftentimes, so far at least, let's say look at the Coca-Cola ad, right? Like the whole, again, the meaning, we're going back to me. The whole purpose and the meaning people are mentioning in the comments is like, oh, the whole purpose of Coca-Cola ad is that it's supposed to be authentic, connecting to humans and have a human story of Christmas. And they decided to add these, animal characters, which I don't see anything wrong with it, but you can see now in this current climate that is triggering for people. So they will try to look for meaning. If they don't see the meaning, immediately AI slop. So being really mindful as a brand.
I left a comment on like, I don't know, there was, some AI page or whatever it was that mentioned this news. So I think it's like evolving.ai. I think it's a huge news Instagram page. And I left a comment and it's getting like a couple of hundred likes now. So I guess people are agreeing with it. And I said, like, my point was, which I think is what you're saying, is the meaning. So I said, AI or CGI is just, these ads are so fucking boring. It's like, cause like I couldn't tell the difference if this was with AI, it was the CGI, cause they've done the CGI for many years with those, like, or however they created it, right? It's like, it's obviously not real. And I'm like, yeah, they're just like, it's just a shit ad. It's just like, oh, Coca-Cola truck comes in, everyone seems happy, Christmas. I'm like, dude, where's the storyline? Like, I feel absolutely nothing. And it seems like a lot of people agree with that. So yeah, I think that's the thing of like, don't point it to AI, because they didn't write the story with AI. It was just them executing it with AI. So they got the same stuff they got last year, but probably just cheaper. But it's still a shit ad, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's what people are triggering. Whereas there's another like a music video that I saw. I forgot the name of the person or the company, but I believe it was like DeepMind team working with some creators creating this music video where they were floating in the water. But the music video itself had a meaning. It was losing somebody that you loved, and they create all the visuals around that you lost somebody and you're mourning. And when I looked through the comments on YouTube, nobody mentioned anything around AI slop. Everybody was like, "Oh my god, I also lost somebody, and this really resonates with me," And that's, we always come back to the meaning and the storytelling, because I think you can have an amazing AI generated video. As long as it has a meaning and a story behind, people will fall for the story and the meaning. Yeah, we don't go around being like, oh my god, AI video. We really are like, oh, does the making this AI serve the purpose of the meaning? And if it doesn't, then it's, I guess that's why people are being triggered by that. But yeah, it's interesting to see like how brands are approaching this. And if I was a brand right now, I would really think carefully. If I am going to say that it's AI generated, I need to have a meaning and story behind why it's AI generated, why I didn't do this with just a person and a camera, you know?
Yeah, and I think sometimes the trick, especially in this environment, like saying where it's a little more sensitive, making it obvious, and like if you, depending on your brand, like making it actually funny, where you make it so obvious it's AI, but you still do it in a clever, smart, cool way, whatever, to match your brand. But if you make it obvious and make almost like a joke about it, that people are like, okay, yeah, we're in on it, that's fine. But yeah, like you have to be kind of clever on how you actually execute on that.
Yeah.
What if you had the dream AI creative tool? If you could create one now, don't matter about your technical skills or money or anything. It's like, what would the dream tool for you look like in your process of creating with AI?
My dream tool, that's a tough one, but I would like something a little bit more. So today, I feel like a lot of the tools they have a lot of image and video generation stuff, but they always forget, like, most creators actually out there go between either Gemini or ChatGPT to create the prompts, right? Nobody's out here typing prompts manually, most of us now. So actually, like, thinking about the creator's perspective, I'm like, oh, maybe we need to have an API call to either ChatGPT or Gemini so we can help creators rewrite their prompts for, I don't know, whatever the structure is the best. But my ideal creative tool right now would be more agentic, in a sense that firstly, it adheres to everything that I want, understands my prompt nuance. Maybe it understands, it isn't limited by the world knowledge that it was trained upon until now, right? And it gives me more than one output if I ask it to, as an example, right? Like if I'm like, oh, give me like all the angles of this one person, so I don't have to like manually like type and, click, but it actually just understands my intention better. So yeah, I would say the best AI tool and model would be for me now something that has really good prompt adherence because it understands my intent and can translate my intent, and having just more of a, I don't know how to describe it, but like more agentic experience than it is today. Because right now I feel like it's either as a creative you have like 5 different tabs open and you're generating stuff, or you are using
tabs
them
like me.
or you like have one of these node-based tools, which are great. But again, I think the better the compute gets, the better our experience is going to be. Because right now, like, wow, why am I waiting like a minute or 2 minutes for a video to be generated? It's not efficient. So I think I'm excited for when the compute actually gets better and better, and these videos will take us like 2 seconds to be generated. I think they will help our workflow. But yeah, there's no but basically all I'm trying to say is there's nothing such as like tooling that I'm now concerned about, because I think that all the tooling out there is pretty good, but we're all of us still struggling with just the long wait time. Nano Banana is great at the speed. It takes maybe like 10-15 seconds, but for video I feel like we could get better, but I think that's going to be dependent on the compute as it gets better.
Yeah, I mean, like anything now with AI, it just goes so much, it just goes like this. So everything's going to go so much faster in a very short time. It's not going to be like, oh, well, maybe in 5 years, the tech will be there. It's like, no, give it a week.
Yeah, I mean, quantum computing, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm excited for the space because I feel like,
we need a hell of a lot more GPUs.
Yeah, GPUs are like some sort of, I don't know. I have not found a use case or an experiment where they have tried quantum computing for this, but that's like, I think the next robotics and quantum computing, I think the next kind of wave of how they'll improve all of our workflows.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very exciting future ahead. Okay, so final thing, I would love some any final advice from you to anyone who's out there watching this. Either they might be a founder and want to get into this and create for themselves, or maybe they actually want to be employed, and work at Google, or anyone who's getting into like being more creative with AI. What would be your advice to them? And also, I know you have an amazing newsletter that I've subscribed to. So, for anyone out there, like, why should they why should they subscribe to your newsletter? And like, who is the newsletter for?
Okay, so advice for anybody trying to get into space. I'm sure you must have heard this many times. distribution is king. So anybody who's trying to either get a job or clients or just get into the space, building your distribution is so important. So I would say even if you are not 100% happy with the work you are outputting, just put it out there, because for sometimes your 80% is for other people 100%. So I would just say I'll put more content out there, and I'm personally need to like actually do it myself, but like volume is more important sometimes than quality, because we are in this space where everybody's fighting for everybody's attention. So unless the quality is like 200% and you can just output one, video or image or something a week that if you know it's gonna get attraction, I would say try to focus at the early stages at least on building your distribution, because even the opportunities I'm getting, it's mostly from LinkedIn. Like people, even at work, would see my LinkedIn and they're like, hey, we saw your post on LinkedIn. Can you please speak at this event? Can you do this? Right? So really, I feel like people, think, oh, I just need to like hush in a quiet space, get better at this. But no, you can actually get better whilst other people are watching and get more opportunities through that. So, because even there's always somebody who knows like couple steps behind you, right? Because people are getting into the space at different times. And so those people are a couple steps behind can learn so much from the 10 steps you have already made, So I would say, put more content out there. Even if it's not 100% amazing, because as I said, your 80% could be for other people's 100%, and just building distribution, connecting with the people in the space as well. But more importantly than anything, I would say is be in places where you are the only one or you are unique. Because if you are now hanging out with 20 other AI creatives, versus if you're hanging out in a room with, 20 different founders who are not from a creative background, I would ask myself, who is going to give me the opportunities that I need to either, get hired or get projects? It'll be most likely the tech founders who need somebody creative, right? So putting yourself in rooms where you are the only one, or at least, a few people.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I think that's why we've done quite well as an agency, just because like I was like, right, I'm super creative, but I love the tech, but I'm not a tech founder, but like that is the world that I'm in. Like I had a few friends who like, got some clients to me, but also just kind of, opened the doors into this like London tech founder world. And now, everyone's like, oh yeah, Marcus, he's like the guy to create
exactly
stuff in London. Yeah. Because like because I love that space and I'm so interested in it, they're like, oh, he has the context, he gets us. He's not just like an average kind of creative agency. It's like, obviously it's not just me, it's my team as well. Yeah. But like, we're not just an agency for any company. And everyone's like, what do you do? It was like, oh, we only focus on founders, not just tech founders, but it tends to be like 80-90% of founders are tech anyway. But like we're in London mainly, we're doing UK and all this stuff. And it works really well because like I go to all these events. I'm like the only creative person there. So I 100% from personal experience agree with that advice. And I need to take your first advice as well. I'm so bad at putting out my own stuff because I'm so busy running the agency, but it's like a shit excuse. Like saying, get stuff out there because it really helps. And also, final advice is to go and subscribe to your newsletter because it's awesome. So for people listening, like what do you share in this newsletter and why is it different from maybe other AI newsletters out there?
So in this newsletter, like it's mostly honestly like just my experiments. So I share my learnings and experiments, but at the same time, I would say for who this is mostly, if I had to think about it, is like the one thing I'm super passionate about is teaching people, especially people who don't come from a creative background. So if you are somebody starting out in the space, that's definitely for you. But also because I've been able to test some of our models and really like spend a whole day on just testing the limits, I feel like I have some sort of unique knowledge that I can share through that because, I don't know who else is like. Basically, I get unlimited credits, right, obviously at work. So that's why I'm like testing the limits, doing the most so I can learn. And usually it's for projects that I'm doing anyway. So I'm like, oh, I didn't know the model can do this. Let me share that because it's a best practice to share if I want more people to use our models, right? So it's basically like my newsletter is for people who are starting out in the space, who want to learn how to use these tools and models, who want to get up to date with the latest announcements of what's happening in the world of creative AI. So it's very targeted. So all the AI news I share is only in the creative AI space. And then lastly, it's also for people who are more professional in the space, but who want to maybe see things, kind of the model being pushed to limits with different experiments.
Amazing. Love it. Yeah. I mean, I've been reading every one of them, and that's very rare because I just don't read emails because I'm too busy. So, well done for that. I really appreciate it. It's very simple and clear, but it still feels a bit personal. And it's not, this very robotic, here's the news and that's it. It still has personality to it, which I really love. So thanks for sharing that with us. And, if you ever get some more unlimited credits, send them my way. So I could test the limits as well. I love that. That's my hobby as well, to really push the boundaries and be like, right, this is how it fucks up. And then I love problem solving. So that's maybe why, in a other life, I would have been a great coder hacker because I just find issues and problems and bugs all the time.
Only use cases, because I feel like sometimes these models come out and the companies don't even know the limits because they just didn't obviously have enough time to test the limits. And then you have these creators online on Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram. They're literally pushing the boundaries, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know you could create this.
Sometimes you create amazing things that you didn't even know, and sometimes you're like, oh, definitely does struggles with these things. Certain models that are trained with, you swap the motions to do it, and it should be oh, if you wave, the character will wave. And I tried it on a few different ones, and it's absolutely awful. So it's really fun to use the test to see what works and what doesn't work. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing amazing things in the AI creative space with us through your newsletter and on LinkedIn. And we had an amazing hour together. So thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. This was really great. Thank you.
All right, guys, it's time for the pick of the day. We got Max Goodrich, who has 500,000 followers on YouTube, so it's definitely not a nobody. He created this Iron Giant live action trailer because he was like, I want to create trailers of movies that I wish existed. And this one is an absolute banger. This is a creative person who got lots of experience then using AI as a tool. This is the perfect combo to show this, you still gotta have a creative mind and be a good storyteller, and man, he nailed it. This is awesome. Have a look.
I'm sorry, sweetie, but I have to work late tonight. Be in bed by 8. In Hogarth. No scary movies.
Mom, you got nothing to worry about. Invaders from Mars. Alien! Where are you?
This is no meteor. This is something more dangerous. Where'd he come from?
He's not a monster! Fire now! My son is out there! You are what you choose to be.
And finally, we have the tip of the day. And this is actually going to be from my own video that I did last week. Well, I mean, Marcus did it, but I kind of helped a little bit. And this video shows how you can change clothing seamlessly in one continuous video. It's quite simple, but it's a really cool effect. So check out this video that Marcus did that explains it. And if you need any help or have any questions, you'll leave a comment below in the video if you're on YouTube, or send a DM to Marcus on any social media and he will help you out.
Here's how you can use AI to swap clothing and change color and make it look like one seamless shot. First, go to Midjourney. Generate an image of a fashion model and then use that image as style and omni reference and prompt it to generate different angles. Download the images and upscale them in Magnific AI, either directly or through Freepik. Then edit the images with Nano Banana to change the outfit. Since this lowers the quality, we want to upscale these again. To generate the videos, use Kling 2.1 start and end frame between the different outfits. Use the basic prompt to evenly transition between the clothes. Now, to remove that weird pause that we get with start and end frames, take those clips into Premiere Pro and remove a few frames on the end and start between each clips and use Morph Cut. For final touches, go to ChatGPT and explain your theme and style. I went for Beyonce and Jay-Z type of song with fashion brand and ask it to generate a prompt for Suno. Paste into Suno and it will give you an amazing track that you can use. If you want to get a more in-depth video on how I did this, comment fashion and I will send you the link. Stay awesome, stay creative.
Okay, Marcus is actually super busy filming in Finland during Slush, which is like some kind of nerd event for founders and startups, whatever. I don't know. I don't care. But he's busy, so I'm actually finishing off this podcast for him. So yeah, peace out, motherfuckers. Have a great time. Hope you enjoy the first episode with me, the man, Mr. Robot, and of course, I mean, Marcus kind of helped a little bit, but whatever. You hear from me, we know that's the case. So I hope you guys enjoy the first episode. I'll see you next week for episode 2. Peace out.